So now that we've explored larger spaces like concert halls, let's now look at the main properties of smaller spaces. Now typically these smaller spaces go under the broad umbrella of being a room algorithm, okay? And room algorithms can be many different types of spaces, ranging from small and bright chambers to medium-sized studios and maybe live music venues that are somewhere between those two extremes. One of the most important distinctions between a room type of algorithm and a concert hall is the build-up of echo density. So concert halls tend to be more dense with reflections, however they grow and build up much more slowly. Whereas rooms still have some sort of contour as they kind of fade in, but it's much faster and they tend to be a little less diffuse and dense overall. So when we're listening out for a room algorithm, some of the things that we should be looking for is the fact that it's more on top of the dry sound slightly compared to a concert hall, that the reverb times are generally in the 1 to 2 second region, or for a very small space under 1 second, and that we have this kind of contouring that happens a little bit faster than the concert hall, so it's more on top of the original sound. So now that we know a lot of the properties we're looking for in a room reverb, let's go ahead and load up a preset of a pretty typical room and compare that to our hall preset from earlier. I'm going to do this with the acoustic guitars in the session, so let's just remind ourselves what they sound like completely dry. Great, so they sound good, but again, very dry. Let's go ahead and create a guitar room. And let's load LX480 onto that channel. Now, just like the halls, a good place to start is in the original factory preset folder, and let's go to the rooms. One of my favorites here is called Large Wood Room. Great, and let's just have a listen to that. So it's got more of a tail there, but hopefully what you're hearing is that it kind of goes under the radar a little bit more compared to the hall, and it kind of sits on top of the dry sound just a touch more, but without making it washed out and sent to the back of the mix. So let's just compare this to the hall. So hopefully what you heard there is the way that the hall kind of took over, and that density kind of happened a bit later on, whereas a room was kind of plastered a bit more on top of it. We can kind of go ahead and listen to the difference when we increase the shape and the spread here to make that contour a little longer, and it will start to sound a bit more like a hall. So hopefully what you heard there is by increasing the shape and the spread, you had that feeling of it contouring into the reverb. Again, if we look at the density here, if we put that up to 99, close to where the hall was, that will again make it more hall-like. Okay, what you may also notice with this is that because the algorithm fundamentally is different, you're never going to get it to sound super like a concert hall, but all of these things are important to understand and recognize so you know when you're driving the parameters a little far. So let's go back to our original preset. Great. And let's look at some of the other properties here. So if we look at the time frequency, we see here that we've actually got less low end, okay, it's a multiplier value of 0.8, and we're at a high frequency value of 0.2 here. So again, the high frequencies in a room are still dying off much more quickly. We've just got a little less low end overall. So let's go ahead and listen to this now, but bringing our reverb time down under a second to give us less of a larger room and more of a tighter studio-like space. So hopefully what you're noticing there is that it adds some gravitas to the overall sense of space and the instrument, but it kind of flies under the radar a lot more than the Hall, which is a very obvious sound that is plastered on top of the original. And this is a really interesting distinction between the two, because a lot of the time, especially in modern contemporary music with higher tempos, you're not going for something that is naturally amplifying and adding that more ethereal, longer reverb tail to things. You're looking for something a bit tighter and a bit more gelling. So let's go ahead and add this same guitar room to the lead vocals and the strings, and then just have a listen to this compared to what you remember from the Hall. So to me, that sounds like I'm in a room with the performer rather than in a concert hall, and that seems a really obvious thing to say, but a lot of the time you've got to recognize the sounds and the traits of these spaces to appropriately program them. And you know, a lot of the time with a lot of contemporary music nowadays, you're not tied to having to sound like you're in one space. So I could go ahead and bring these halls down and bring them up just until it feels right, because I'm getting the gelling from the rooms, but what I'm going to get from the halls is that kind of larger than life, ethereal, ear candy type of effect. And if I blend that in underneath, I can kind of get the best of both worlds. So let's just have a listen to that.
'Cause they don't want me as I am. They would never understand it. No, from above this, why am I at the bottom now? They don't want me as I am. Oh.
And let's go ahead and turn all of this on and off so you can hear it.
'Cause they don't want me as I am. They would never understand it. No, from above this, why am I at the bottom now? They don't want me as I am.
something that I'd often do is automate the levels of these just a little bit. So that vocal hall in this drop bit, I kind of want to make that feel more intimate. So by dropping the amount of hall there, you can kind of give people a roller coaster of emotions. And let's step it up kind of at this point. Great, so in the next video we're going to be looking at how you can impart more early reflections and more ambience to a typical room sound.